Hello and welcome to this James the Bike Guy, where today we're taking a look at Specialized brand new for 2026 Diverge 4. Now this is the alloy model and the nicest of the two alloys available. This is the 2026 Diverge 4 Comp Alloy. And in this video, I promise to show you all the features and designs of this bike, talk about what's changed and what's new for 2026, as well as we'll end it with exactly what it weighs. Speaking Specialized Diverge. Now, the Diverge has had a bit of a quandary as Specialized has evolved their lineup, making the Roubaix more capable and adding in the Diverge STR, which has almost you could call it a pseudo full suspension setup. And as they've gone, they've needed to make the Diverge a bit more capable for all day riding, for bikepacking adventures, and still having the sportiness and ability to show up for a race if you weren't choosing one of their lighter, more race specific bikes like the Specialized Crux. And so that's a long way to get into that this really needs to be a jack of all trades, and many of the changes for the Diverge 4 focus around being able to make that a reality. Now, this bike being a alloy model means that this is rocking Specialized E5 butted aluminum frame, which means that it's butted for thick and thin tubing. It's got hydroform shapes, so really manipulated and unique frame to be able to get the most out of an alloy bike that you can. And in fact, they come in two levels, with this being the comp model. They also have the sport below it, and in fact I would expect in the future they may even release a more basic Diverge 4 base. But for now, we've got the sport and the comp is coming with a better part spec, but also bringing in a higher price point at $2,699. Now for that, you're going to get a couple of really neat things, and the first would be Specialized Future Shock in the front end. Now, this Future Shock is really unique to Specialized, and in fact, I believe they're the only ones doing it where they're suspending the rider above the bike rather than adding suspension below the front end. And what that allows for is smoother is faster, and supporting the rider and allowing them to have more comfort means that you should be able to get a longer day out on the saddle. Now, the 2026 model features their Future Shock 3.0, which is going to have 20 millimeters of suspension movement for your hands, and it's being controlled by this damper integrated into the steer tube. So essentially the damper drops in, your stem clamps onto that Future Shock, and you get your setup. It's pretty slick and pretty simple. I've owned a bike that has a Future Shock setup, and something I really like about this is they do send it to you in the medium spring setting, but you get a soft and a firm spring setting as well that comes with the bike, meaning you can adapt the way that it's going to ride. And then the headset cap, this changes in height. There's a short and a tall that comes on the bike. The tall for the most upright position comes stock, but the short one does come with it as well if you want to make the position a bit sportier and more aggressive. And speaking of position, I think that's going to be the other place that's got a big change for this year, and that's going to be in the geometry of the bike. Now, what they've done is they've slackened out the front end of the bike, so it now has a 71-degree head tube angle, which also elongates the wheelbase for a bit more stability, which is backed up with a 5 millimeter lower bottom bracket height, allowing again to bring your weight down. Wheelbase stretches out, and they've also increased the reach of the bike, so the frame has gotten a bit longer as well, allowing you as a rider to sit more in the bike rather than on the bike. And so those changes, combined with a 5 millimeter increase to the chainstays at 430 millimeters, allows you to have a longer front center of this bike. It also gives you wider tire clearance, which now is rated for up to 50 millimeters of tire clearance, or you can even run Specialized own Air Track cross country 29er tire in a 2.2 width, which is just absolutely insane. You know, falls into that category of how much closer to XC mountain bikes of yesteryear that gravel bikes continue to get to. And speaking of changes of new gravel bikes, well, this is going to be the first alloy gravel bike on the market to have frame storage. Specialized has added alloy frame storage to their mountain bike lineup, but it's the first time in the aluminum Diverge series and the first time of any brand, I believe. But here you've got a huge swath of room internal to the frame to be able to carry gear with you. And this is their SWAT Storage 3.0, so the third generation, which has a pretty wide door, which of course your water bottle mounts onto, to be able to get things internal. And it also makes it even easier when you're doing internal cable routing, because now you have an access point if anything were to be going wrong. Now, speaking of places to mount, we're going to have 6 total mounts on the bike. So you've got it on your down tube here, your seat tube, we've got a top tube mount, and under the bottom bracket you do as well as 2 areas to mount on either side of the fork. So that's going to give you your 6 spots to be able to carry all sorts of gear on this bike. And in fact, you can even utilize their 27.2 alloy seat post out back for a clamp for a rack to the rear end, or to be able to connect up with some of the fender setups that we have on this bike as well. Now, increasing the adaptability, they are running this bike with a UDH derailleur hanger, which is the new standard for rear derailleur hangers. It's a standard that SRAM put together to try to make it a little more universal and a bit easier to find parts and maintain when you need. And of course, it's running through with a SRAM Apex 1x system. And that Apex rear derailleur is shifting through a 12-speed wide range cassette flowing forward to this 1x SRAM Apex chainring setup. It's a 40-tooth narrow wide, and the crank is going through a threaded bottom bracket. And of course, the tire setup on this bike is going to be Specialized own Tracer tires. These are a 700 by 45 millimeter tire size out of the box, laced up with some DT Swiss G540 rims to their house brand hubs and stainless steel 2.0 spokes. Last things to talk about, of course, is going to be in the cockpit, of which case you've got this riser bar, or what Specialized affectionately calls the hover bar. So it comes up a little bit, giving you a little more stack, and then you're going to have a short reach to your brake hoods, as well as a flared drop to give you a little more room for your wrists when you're riding in the drops. And of course, in the rear is going to be Specialized own body geometry power saddle, which is a truncated nose saddle, nice and comfortable in a 143 millimeter width. So now that we've taken a look at all the features and designs of this here Specialized Diverge 4 comp alloy, let's go ahead and find out what it weighs. The actual weight of this Specialized Diverge 4 comp alloy comes in and weighs 25.06 in a size 56 centimeter frame. Thanks for joining me to check out the 2026 Specialized Diverge 4 Comp Alloy. It's a mouthful, but man, does this bike take on a lot. So go ahead and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you feel like this is a hit for Specialized, or what did they miss to make this a truly great aluminum gravel bike?